All right, generally speaking, summer is our calmest season of the year. But boy, I looked at the marine forecast, and the next several days look like we're gonna have west winds. Sometimes that happens in the summer, day after day after day of west wind. That can make speckled trout fishing very tough. But when that happens, one thing that actually improves with a west wind is fishing marsh bass. Not glorious. A lot of guys don't do it in the summertime. They much prefer going to catch the big speckled trout that are outside. But it's just tough with that west wind, and this fishing is very, very good this time of year. Now, there's a few things you got to keep in mind if you want to have success. Far and away, the most important is go on a falling tide. You're going to do much better on a falling tide than you are on a rising tide. All that bait is being sucked out of the marsh, and those bass sit in the bayous and the little bit deeper water, the little trenasses, and just ambush the bait nonstop. What also sits in those trenasses and those little bit deeper bayous are redfish. When you get these west winds, the ponds empty out. The redfish have no choice but to move into that slightly deeper water, and man, you can just whack them. Today, my son Joel and I came to this Chef Pass Marsh area, and we are just lambasting not only the bass, but also the reds. Actually, we may have more reds in the boat than bass. Letting most of the reds go, keeping a few of the bass, keeping some of the smaller reds. Fantastic action, very, very close to home. All right, so a lot of times if you have a west wind and it's blowing for a while, you're gonna have dirty water, even back in the marshes. Very, very important to have success doing this, to go find areas that have grass. You're probably not gonna find a whole lot of just matted grass everywhere, because that grass actually starts dying back a little bit with the heat. But you do wanna find areas that have a good amount of grass. Areas that are fishable. Sometimes the grass is just matted for days. You don't want to fish that. That's an indication of shallow water. You want to find areas with a little bit of a slope, a little bit of a ledge that will have some water in them, some moving water, grass along the edges. Those are the types of places you want to focus on. As that water pulls out of those ponds through the trenasses into these little bayous and ditches, it actually filters in that grass and can get a whole lot cleaner. Water today is not spectacular, but it's very, very fishable. I've seen it cleaner back here, but it's still very, very fishable, and believe me, we're having no trouble catching lots and lots and lots of fish. Now, something else that is important, and we've seen a ton of it today, is bait. That's fishing 101. Doesn't matter what you're targeting, you want to find the bait, and of course, today we are finding plenty of bait. Looks like a lot of mullet. We haven't found any shrimp. It's all mullet, pogies, all types of bait fish, shad, but man, they are exploding everywhere. It's not even late yet. The sun's still high in the sky, but these fish are already feeding on top, and that's only going to improve. I tell you one thing I can't wait to do, we're going to do it the last hour of the day, is throw some pop-bars. Believe it or not, you can throw pop-bars even with this grass around. You just fish it along the edges of the grass. You're going to occasionally hook up a little bit of grass, just take it off and move on. But also with scum frogs that you fish up on top of that grass. Throw back on the matted stuff, work it across the top, and you will get some explosions that will bring you to your knees. Most of the fish we're catching are marsh bass in the 1.5 to 2 pound category. Pretty chunky, healthy marsh bass, but we've also caught some beautiful fish today. My son Joel actually caught one that may have been pushing 4 pounds. Very, very big fish. That's kind of unusual. It's not the norm. You're coming out here more for the schoolies, for the marsh bass, and for the activity. Catching those reds in between, nothing like it. Now, one thing that also is important that I don't want to forget to mention, when you come out here, don't bring your trout equipment. This isn't something to come do necessarily with light spinning tackle or anything like that. Particularly if you're going to flip. You want to flip with some heavier equipment. I'm fishing a medium heavy rod today. I got braided line with a fluorocarbon leader attached with a uni knot. Now, a lot of people don't care about the fluorocarbon leader. They just tie directly to the braid. I don't have any confidence in that. I feel like you get a lot more hits when you fish with a leader. So if you don't know how to tie the double uni, learn. It's very, very easy, and it's well worth its weight in gold. Today we're using a watermelon candy worm with a 1/8 ounce bullet weight, and that's just our style of fishing. It's what we like to fish. I know a lot of people like to come back and do this. Spinner baits, I hate fishing spinner baits. It's not any fun for me. Sometimes that's all I'll hit. If that's the case, I'll throw it, but I much prefer flipping these worms. And let me tell you, these redfish definitely will run a mile to get one of these worms away from a bass. So come on out here. It's just a whole lot of fun. This goes on all over the whole coast of Louisiana, all in these marsh areas, from the Wrigley's all the way over to Calcasieu, Sabine area. It's just a great summertime activity. Not enough people do it. Avoid the midday hours, fish the edges of the day, focus on that falling tide, find clean water, moving water, bait, and you will catch some marsh bass. A lot of fun.